Hi everyone, thanks for coming back. If you are back or if this is the first time that you've seen one of my videos, my name's Lindsay. I'm from Scotland. Um, I wanted to make this video because when I was pregnant, I found quite a lot of comfort in watching other people's positive birth stories, and in particular, sort of watching people's vlogs and things like that, which made giving birth seem a lot less scary, and less medical as well. Because I think I was very scared of the idea of it being this big medical procedure. Um, I'm currently 17, I want to say 17 days postpartum, 18 days. My little girl was 2 weeks old on Monday and it's now Friday, put it that way. So although it should still be really fresh in my mind, I wanted to make sure I made this quite quickly because I'm already forgetting parts, which is really strange because it was such a big experience. Um, to start already getting sort of fuzzy on the details is a little bit disconcerting. But then I have had a lot less sleep the last 2 weeks than I normally would, so I don't know if that's contributing as well as the hormones and things that are all supposed to happen. In the sort of build up to my birth story or our birth story, I didn't enjoy being pregnant really at all. Like, I liked the idea that I was pregnant. I was over the moon to be pregnant, but actually the day-to-day ins and outs, the feeling of it, I didn't like it at all. In fact, sometimes I would just cry because I was just so fed up of being pregnant. And that's not even like in the last little stretch of it. I mean, I was like 20 weeks and crying, fed up of being pregnant. But at the same time, like hoping and praying that everything was going to be fine and I was going to make it to 40 weeks and she was going to be healthy and come out well. So in my first trimester, I vomited and vomited and vomited. I never felt so unwell for so long in my life. I was just ill for months. And I know there's some people who, unfortunately, have conditions where they are ill for months. But to me, that was completely new, and I absolutely take my hat off to those people. I had a condition called HG. If you're pregnant, you've probably heard of it. If you're not living it, and people get it to varying degrees. I've heard some people who throw up, 40 plus times a day. I wasn't quite in that category, but it was still bad enough in my book. I spent a lot of my first trimester working from home purely because of throwing up all the time. I couldn't realistically get from my house to work without throwing up multiple times. It would have taken me all day to get there, and to get back. In fact, I had to tell my work that I was pregnant when I was only, I think, 6 weeks, which was obviously far faster than I planned to, especially as I was actually quite new at my job. I found out that I was pregnant the day before I started my new job. So yeah, it wasn't exactly my plan to then, 2 weeks into the job, tell them I'm pregnant and I'm really sick. But I was sitting in work and I'd had like 3 sips of water, which I knew was risky at this point, but I was so thirsty that I just had to have something to like wet my mouth because my job involves a lot of talking. And yeah, I just started throwing up into the waste paper bin and then not really knowing what to do. So having to tell someone, like, I'm sorry, but I gotta go home. And also I'm pregnant, so this might go on for a while. So I was working from home, which in a way was great because it gave me a distraction and something else to focus on whilst I was feeling so ill, and meant that, I could work. I think I would have, I don't know how I would have coped if I couldn't have worked. Obviously there were some days it was too bad and I couldn't. There were some days that I had to go into hospital. There was one time especially where, well, there was one time I sort of went to A&E out of hours and things, but there was one time I went to triage and had to get like 3 bags of fluids and have antiemetics and that sort of thing. So obviously I couldn't work that day. But I managed to work for most of my first trimester despite the sickness, which was an absolute godsend, because as I say, otherwise I would have just have nothing to fill my head except for the nausea. The only thing I can liken it to is like travel sickness, but really, really bad travel sickness. So I'd be lying in bed at night and I felt like I was on a ship. Like, it felt like the bed was moving and just didn't stop for weeks. It was so bad. So I didn't enjoy my first trimester. The second trimester, they say is the best trimester, which at the time I was hoping wasn't true. Because I still had some sickness. It wasn't nearly as bad, and by then I had a regular anti-sickness medicine that I was taking that kind of took the edge off a bit-ish. But I still just felt awful. I just felt ill. I was just lying in bed for as much as I possibly could and did as little as I possibly could. But during that time, my nephew was born, so I managed to go and visit my sisters, who live quite far away from me, so, a plane ride away, or a very long train ride away. I got the train this particular time. I went to see them for a week, so that was actually a really nice distraction, and I think that was about the time my pregnancy was the easiest. I also was able during my second trimester to go away for the weekend to go to a friend's wedding. So I was a lot more capable than I was in the first trimester. In the first trimester, I wouldn't have been able to do those things. As I say, I couldn't even get up and go to work without puking all over myself. And then in my third trimester, the heartburn just about finished me off. So obviously I was still sick occasionally in my second trimester. Like, I felt sick quite often, but the actual vomiting settled right down. I was hardly ever actually vomiting then in my second trimester. But it came back in the third trimester in a different way. So I would get so acidy that it would like build up and it would make me vomit. And I would have like this constant horrible taste in the back of my throat. Quite often it would wake me up in the night. I would wake up like gagging and like being sick on the acid. Really awful. Certain things did seem to make it worse. So like once I got a handle on it, it was fairly better, but it was still awful. And the things that I had to do to make it better weren't fun. Like, I wouldn't eat after like 6:30 at night with a view of going to bed at 10:30. Because any less than like 4 hours, and I couldn't at all lie down. I don't even mean lie flat. I wasn't lying flat. I couldn't even like lean back without just bleh. So quite often I would end up waking up in the night and then just coming downstairs and sitting for hours at 2 in the morning, because it was better than lying down and choking. And it gave me quite a fright as well, like waking up choking like that. I would feel really, frightened. So that's kind of what my pregnancy experience was really marked by. I mean, there was really good things that happened as well. I had the scans, which were amazing. I had my first scan, the dating scan in the NHS, and then I paid for a private extra scan at 16 weeks. Partly because I was desperate to find out if I was having a girl or a boy, but also because I want my stepson to be as involved as possible, and he couldn't come to the NHS scans, so that was a way that he could meet his little brother or sister before they were born, a way that I could feel like I was involving him more, and a way that he could find out if they were a girl or a boy at the same time as myself and my partner, his dad. and then I had my 20-week dating scan. And they were amazing experiences. I was very, very lucky in that although I felt very ill, she was absolutely fine the whole way through. There wasn't any concerns at any point about her safety, or her health. So those scans were really like affirming, reassuring experiences. And all the sort of tests and bloods and things that were taken again were just really reassuring for me. Because I was lucky enough to never have bad news from them. So yeah, that's the good and the bad. It was such a long 9 months. I know some people say, "Oh, my pregnancy flew by," and some people would say that about my pregnancy. Oh, they would say, "Oh, I feel like I just found out you were pregnant," or, "Oh, I can't believe you're already 6 months, 7 months, 8 months pregnant." But no, it was so long to me. It was so long. And I just so desperately wanted to meet her and give her a cuddle, and every week that passed just seemed to get slower. She was due in February, so I used to say like, "Oh, it'll be Christmas before I know it, and then after Christmas it'll be hardly any time until she's here." But the space between Christmas and her due date at the end of February was so long, so long. Like it feels like years instead of like 2 months. So yeah, that's kind of the background of where I was. And I'll tell you a little bit more about sort of the build up to my labour in part 2.